The message from my daughter felt like it came from a stranger. Don't come to my wedding. My husband doesn't want you there. You're no longer part of our lives. I stared at the screen for a long time before quietly canceling every check I had written. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just sat there in silence. The next morning she was standing on my doorstep, looking like she hadn't slept at all. I'm glad you're here, she said softly. Before I tell you what happened next, please like this video, listen until the end, and tell me in the comments which city you're listening from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. For 32 years, I had built what I thought was an unbreakable life. My daughter Emma was the center of it. I raised her alone after her father left when she was just 3 years old. I worked long shifts at the hospital, saved every spare dollar, and made sure she never felt like she had less than anyone else. She did wonderfully, graduated with honors in marketing, found a good job in Boston, and made me prouder than I can describe. My life was quiet but full. A small house in Connecticut, a little garden, a book club every Thursday. Emma called me every Sunday, sometimes for an hour or more. We talked about her work, her plans, her dreams. That was our routine. That was our normal. Then 6 months ago she mentioned a man named Jake. At first he was just a coworker she sometimes had coffee with. She said he was ambitious and charming. I was happy for her, truly. But something in her voice had changed. She sounded more careful, more distant. When I asked when I could meet him, she hesitated. Maybe later, Mom. We're taking things slow. Except slow didn't last. 2 months later they were living together. 4 months later they were engaged. And I still hadn't met him. Every time I suggested visiting, there was a new excuse. Work was hectic, Jake was out of town, the apartment wasn't ready for guests yet. I told myself not to push. I didn't want to be that mother, the one who smothers and interferes. But when she finally sent me a photo of them together, something in my chest tightened. Jake looked polished and confident, the kind of man who always seems to know exactly what to say. His arm was around Emma, but she looked smaller somehow, like her light had dimmed. I told myself I was imagining things. She was happy. That's what mattered. The wedding was set for June, a small destination ceremony in the Bahamas. Just close friends and family, she said. I booked my flight that same day and started looking for a dress. Never guessing how badly everything was about to fall apart, I had offered to help pay for the wedding because I truly wanted to support my daughter, whether it was the hall, the flowers, or anything else they needed, and Emma agreed without much discussion. In March I sent $15,000 for the resort, then in April another $12,000 for the food, and in May $8,000 more for pictures and decorations. Every time she thanked me, but her replies felt short and distant, like she was already far away from me. I kept telling myself she was just tired from planning such a big event and that things would go back to normal after the wedding. Then one Tuesday evening while I was working in my garden, my phone buzzed with a message from her, and my heart felt lighter because she had been so quiet lately. But when I opened it, my hands started to shake because she told me not to come to the wedding and said I was no longer welcome in her life. I read it again and again, hoping I had misunderstood, but the words stayed the same. I tried calling her right away, but it went to voicemail every time, and when I sent her a message asking what was wrong, she never replied. I sat down, confused and hurt, trying to remember if I had said something wrong, but our last talk about her dress had been calm and normal. That's when I realized this wasn't really coming from her, because ever since she met Jake she had slowly changed, growing colder and more distant. With shaking hands I opened my bank app and saw all 3 payments sitting there, $35,000 that I had saved over many years of hard work and sacrifice. That money was meant to celebrate her happiness, not to be taken while I was being pushed away, so I canceled every payment. That night I couldn't sleep at all, and I lay in bed thinking about her childhood, her first day at school, the times I stayed by her side when she was hurt, and all the years I had spent raising her alone. Before dawn, I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and paper, trying to understand everything I had lost, realizing that the money was only part of it, because that amount represented years of extra work, missed rest, and dreams I had put aside for her. I had always dreamed of traveling through Europe the next year, but that plan was gone now, and somehow losing that dream hurt far less than everything else I had given over the years. I sat down and started writing things out, trying to see the full picture in front of me instead of just feeling it in my chest. I wrote down the wedding costs, then the large part of her college fees I had paid, the car I bought her as a graduation gift, the money for her first apartment and furniture, and the years I covered her insurance until she found steady work. There were also countless birthdays, holidays, and care packages that I couldn't even begin to count. When I added it all up, it was well over $100,000, and that still didn't include the years of effort, worry, and love I had poured into being her mother. And after all that, what did I receive in return? A short message telling me I was no longer welcome in her life or at her wedding. The unfairness of it all made my chest feel heavy, because I knew I had tried my best, showing up to every school event, every performance, and every important moment, even when I was tired or struggling. But as the morning went on, my sadness slowly turned into determination, and I realized I wasn't going to sit there feeling sorry for myself anymore. I decided I needed to be smart and organized, so first I saved copies of her message, our old conversations from before things changed, and all the payment records, and I put them into a folder on my computer so nothing could disappear. Then I started thinking about protecting myself and looked at my will, where I saw her name listed to receive everything I owned, and I knew that had to be reviewed, so I wrote myself a reminder to call my lawyer first thing Monday. Finally, I turned my attention to the real cause of all this and opened my laptop to look into Jake, whose name Emma had mentioned before. On the surface, his profile looked impressive, with a strong education and a good job, but the more I looked, the more uneasy I felt, because every picture showed a life full of expensive trips and fancy places, which made me wonder if he truly had that kind of money or if he was simply pretending and keeping Emma away from anyone who might start asking the wrong questions. The idea left me feeling uneasy, and before I realized it, the sun was already rising while I was still sitting at the table, surrounded by notes filled with questions and thoughts I had written down during the night. The morning light came through the kitchen window, and even though I was tired, my mind felt clearer than it had in hours, and for the first time since everything happened, I felt like I finally knew what I needed to do. Then I heard a car stop outside and a door close, and when I looked up, I saw someone walking toward my house, and my heart tightened when I realized it was Emma. She looked worn out, with red eyes, messy clothes, and the kind of face that shows someone hasn't slept. She knocked firmly, and for a moment I just stood there, torn between wanting to hold her like I used to and the part of me that had grown stronger during the night and needed answers. When I opened the door, she was already crying and asked what I had done, but I didn't step aside to let her in and instead waited for her to explain. She said the payments were canceled and that the places they had booked were calling them, reminding me the wedding was only a few weeks away, and in that moment it was clear she wasn't there to fix things, she was there because the money was gone. I calmly reminded her that she was the one who told me not to come and said I no longer belonged in her life, and that people who are pushed away shouldn't be expected to keep paying. She tried to explain it away by saying she was upset and that they had argued, and when I asked if Jake had pushed her to send that message, her hesitation gave me the answer even before she spoke. She tried to turn it around and accused me of using money to control her, which hurt deeply because I had never done that, and when I asked her to name even one time, she couldn't. I told her I had always supported her and only asked for honesty and basic respect, and when she said I was overreacting, I quietly took out my phone and showed her the message she had sent me, letting her see her own words. I told her to read the message out loud and then ask me again if I was overreacting, and when Emma looked at the screen, her face tightened and her hands started to shake. She said she had been angry, but I asked her to read it anyway, and as she spoke the words, her voice grew quieter and weaker, like she could barely stand to hear them herself. I asked her if people only say things like that in anger or if those words usually show what's been sitting in their heart for a long time, and that's when the tears finally fell. I told her calmly that what really wasn't fair was raising her alone for more than 3 decades and then being treated like I was some kind of burden, and that it also wasn't fair to pay for a wedding I was being pushed out of. She tried to take it back and said she wanted me there and that Jake did too. But when I asked what the real problem was, she admitted he thought I might cause a scene or embarrass them, and that was when everything finally made sense. I told her I had never once embarrassed her, but that maybe I didn't fit into the world he came from, and even though she denied it, she couldn't explain how she went from loving me to pushing me away in just a few months. Then her phone started ringing, and when I saw his name on the screen, I watched her whole body tense as she answered and quietly agreed to everything he said. And when she hung up, she begged me to restore the payments and promised we would talk later. But it was clear she only cared about saving the wedding. When she said she couldn't cancel now because of the guests and how it would look, I asked her a simple question about whether I would truly be welcome if I paid. And when she hesitated again and said she would talk to him, I realized that my feelings would always come second. When she finally asked why I was doing this and accused me of ruining her life, something inside me didn't break in anger, but instead became completely clear and steady for the first time. I realized the person standing in front of me no longer felt like my daughter but like someone repeating another person's thoughts and living by rules that weren't her own. So I told her calmly that I wasn't trying to destroy her life, I was simply no longer paying for it, and those were two very different things. When she asked if that meant I was done with her, I explained that she had already walked away from me and I was only accepting what she had chosen. And then I closed the door even though I could hear her crying and begging on the other side. I went back to the kitchen, back to my notes and my plan, and when she kept calling and sending messages I didn't answer, even though my hands were shaking while I made myself some tea. That Monday I followed through and met my lawyer, a man who had handled my affairs for many years, and when I showed him the message, the payments and everything that had happened, he understood how serious this was and helped me think clearly instead of emotionally. We talked through my options and I decided to set things up so that any future grandchildren would be protected, but no one would have access to the money until they were old enough and able to stand on their own, and the rest would go to charity and to a scholarship fund at the same college I had worked so hard to pay for. It felt strange and sad but also steady and final, like I was closing one chapter and making sure whatever came next would be built on fairness instead of pressure or guilt. The paperwork was finished within days, and by the middle of the week everything was signed, which meant Emma's future inheritance was officially changed. But I still wasn't done because I had spent several days quietly looking into Jake's past, and what I discovered was deeply troubling. He wasn't just someone trying to get ahead in life, he was buried in financial trouble, had moved from place to place too often, and had a pattern of getting close to women from well-off families before things suddenly fell apart, which made one thing painfully clear to me. He wasn't choosing Emma for love, he was choosing what he thought came with her. While I was organizing what I had found, their car pulled into my driveway and soon there was loud knocking at my door, and when I opened it, Emma looked exhausted and Jake looked angry and walked in as if he owned the place. He accused me of trying to ruin everything, but I stayed calm and told him I had my own explanation, that he had been isolating Emma and hiding things, and when I listed what I had uncovered about his past and his money problems, I saw the confidence drain from his face. I showed him and Emma the records I had saved, including details about his past relationships and financial troubles, and when Emma looked at the proof in my hand, I could see the shock and confusion all over her face as the truth finally started to sink in. Those are Emma's words. Don't listen to her. I can explain, Jake snapped. You said you'd never been engaged before, Emma whispered, her voice trembling. You said I was your first serious relationship. For a moment his facade cracked. Maybe that was different, he muttered. Those women weren't, what? Rich enough? Gullible enough? His mask slipped, and for a brief second, pure anger flashed across his face before he smoothed it over and reached for Emma's hand. Let's go, he said, forcing a smile. Your mother is toxic. This is exactly why I said she shouldn't come to the wedding. But Emma pulled her hand away, glaring at him. You said you wanted her there. You said family mattered. The truth spilled out finally, raw and undeniable. I lied to make you happy, he admitted. I didn't want her there. Look at what she's doing to us. Emma froze, tears streaming down her cheeks, then bolted toward the car. Jake jabbed a finger at me. This isn't over. You've turned her against me, but I'll fix it. And when I do, you'll be left with nothing. He stormed out, and I watched through the window as he argued with Emma in the car, her sobbing, him gesturing in fury, until the BMW roared away. I closed the door and sank against it, heart pounding, adrenaline still coursing. That had been far more intense than I expected. Jake was dangerous, not physically maybe but emotionally, psychologically. His manipulation, the way he tried to twist reality and gaslight both of us, was exhausting. I needed space. I called Patricia and told her I needed a few days away. Come now, she said. Stay as long as you need. Within the hour, I packed a bag and drove to her cabin in the Burkers. For 3 days I disconnected completely. No phone, no messages. I hiked, read, sat by the lake, letting my nerves calm. When I finally checked my phone, there were 43 missed calls and 72 texts, a barrage of frantic manipulation. Messages from Jake, from Emma, from both trying to twist me into compliance. Apologies mingled with pressure, invitations to dinners, please to just talk. I sat at Patricia's cabin, coffee in hand, morning sunlight filtering through the pines as she observed sharply, "They're scared." I nodded. Good, or regrouping? Maybe both, she said, refilling my mug. What are you going to do? I took a slow sip. Nothing. Let them sweat. She smiled. I had learned well. Patricia had been my mentor when I first started nursing, a woman who raised 3 children alone while working her way up to head nurse, unafraid of anyone or anything, and she had taught me to do the same. Patricia leaned back, studying me carefully. What do they want, Maggie? If Jake knows you're onto him, why hasn't he just walked away? I'd asked myself the same question. Emma must not fully believe me, or maybe she's choosing not to. As long as she stayed with him, he had a chance to manipulate things, so he needed to either win me over or turn Emma completely against me. Right, I said. Patricia's eyes were sharp. Be careful. Men like that are dangerous when cornered. That afternoon I drove home feeling steadier, fortified by rest and her insight. My house felt smaller somehow, but also more firmly mine. I'd lived here 20 years, raised Emma here, and I wasn't about to be pushed out by a con artist. I sat at the kitchen table and sent Emma a simple message. I love you. I always will. But I won't have a relationship with Jake built on lies. When you're ready to hear the truth and have a real conversation, I'm here. Until then, I need space. Minutes later, her reply came. We need to talk, please. I didn't respond immediately. Not yet, I typed back. She asked. When you're ready to really listen, I wrote. 3 hours later, a delivery arrived. 2 dozen roses, a card from Jake and Emma saying we're sorry. Please give us a chance. I handed them to my neighbor. The next day, a gourmet gift basket appeared with another card from Emma. I donated it to the church charity sale. On the 3rd day, Jake came alone but never rang the bell. He left an envelope with a check for $35,000 and a handwritten note promising to make amends and asking to take me to lunch. I stared at it long and hard. He was trying to buy me, erase his debts with Emma by creating one with me, make himself look generous and responsible. It was clever, I had to admit, but I wouldn't be bought. I tore the check to pieces and mailed it back. That weekend, I went to my book club for the first time in weeks. My friends, Sarah, Linda, Joan, Patricia, could see I'd been distracted. I told them everything. When I finished, Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're doing the right thing. I nodded, but inside I still wondered quietly if I was being too harsh. If I should just let it go, attend the wedding and try to build a relationship with Jake for Emma's sake? Absolutely not, Linda said firmly. She'd survived a nasty divorce and recognized manipulation immediately. That man is using your daughter, she said. If you back down now, you're validating his tactics. But what if I lose Emma completely? I asked, my voice tight. Joan, our oldest at 74, spoke softly but with undeniable authority. Then you lose her. But you don't lose yourself. Don't compromise your integrity for someone who's already decided you're disposable. Her words cut through me, sharp but true. Patricia poured more wine. Besides, you haven't lost her yet, she added. She's still texting, still trying. Part of her knows something's wrong. The question, Sarah said, is whether she realizes it before the wedding or after. After will be worse, I admitted. If she marries him, then you'll have to pick up the pieces. But that was future Margaret's problem. Present Margaret needed to hold the line. I left that meeting feeling stronger than I had in weeks. These women saw through Jake's charm and Emma's desperation, reminding me I wasn't crazy, cruel, or wrong. That night, Emma called. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me answer. Mom, her voice small and fearful. I'm here. Did you get Jake's check? I did, I said calmly. I sent it back. Silence. Then why? She asked, voice breaking. We were trying to make things right. Emma, I said firm, you can't buy forgiveness. That's not how this works. Then what do you want from me? She cried. I've apologized, Jake's apologized. We sent gifts, tried everything. I want you to wake up. Wake up to what? I asked. I want you to see who he really is. What he's doing to you, to us. Does he love me or does he love what you represent? Then she hung up. I sat in the dark, phone in hand, wondering if I'd ever get my daughter back. They arrived on a Sunday morning. I was in my garden as I had been 4 weeks ago when this all began, only now my roses were in full bloom, and I was a different woman. I heard the car before I saw it. Emma's Honda, not Jake's BMW. Strategic, less aggressive. They came around the back gate, both dressed carefully. Emma wore the sundress I'd bought her last Christmas. Jake, casual khakis and a button-down. Hallmark perfect. They looked calm, but I knew better. Margaret, Jake called with a warm smile, we hope to find you here. Your roses are beautiful. I straightened, removed my gardening gloves slowly. Emma, Jake, can we talk? Emma asked, nervous. Just for a few minutes. I could have said no, maybe should have, but curiosity won. We sat at my patio table, the one where Emma and I used to have breakfast on summer mornings. Jake placed himself at the head of the table, asserting authority in my space. Interesting choice, I noted silently. He began, measured and earnest. I want to start by saying I've done a lot of reflecting. You were absolutely right to question my intentions. If I were in your position, I'd have done the same. I haven't been fully honest with Emma, or with you. Jake reached for Emma's hand. She let him, but it was clear she was uneasy. I've had financial troubles, he admitted, and yes, I've been engaged before. But those situations were complicated. How complicated? I asked, narrowing my eyes. The women I was with, their families were controlling. They tried to dictate everything. When I pushed back, things fell apart. He looked at me steadily. I see now I was projecting that onto you. I assumed you'd be the same, overbearing, manipulative. I was trying to protect Emma from something that wasn't even real. His performance was flawless. Vulnerable, self-aware, apologetic. I could have almost believed him. And the debt? I pressed. I asked from my business, he explained. I tried starting a consulting firm after business school. It failed. I've been digging out ever since, but I'm almost there. Another year and I'll be clear. He squeezed Emma's hand. I should have told you from the start. I was ashamed. Emma's eyes glimmered with cautious hope, desperate to believe. So you're not marrying Emma for her money? I asked directly. Emma doesn't have money, he said, confusion crossing his face. We're just normal people trying to build a life. Ah, so you thought she would inherit? I pressed. His expression flickered. No, never crossed my mind. Really? I shot back. Because you seemed very interested in my house, in what Emma was supposed to inherit. He shifted uncomfortably. I said things I didn't mean, just like Emma did when she called me a stranger. Emma flinched. Mom, let me guess, I interrupted. Jake apologizes beautifully. You promised to include me in the wedding. We hug, cry, and everything goes back to normal. But the wedding's in 2 weeks and you still need money. So, eventually you're going to ask me to reinstate those checks. Emma's face flushed. That's not it, she said, voice cracking. We're trying to fix our relationship. Why does it have to be about money? Because money is what brought you here, I said coldly. Not love. Not family. Money. Jake's smile vanished. You know what, Margaret? Emma was right about you. You're controlling. You use your money as a weapon. He stood abruptly, his charm peeling away. I use my money how I choose. That's autonomy. You call it narcissism. He paced a step closer. Emma has bent over backward to appease you, apologized, compromised, begged, and you sit there like some queen expecting everyone to bow. Emma started to speak. Jake, stop. No, she needs to hear this, he said sharply. I saw him then. The real Jake, the man hiding behind charisma and lies, and not the polished, apologetic figure he had tried to be. Jake accused me of being bitter, lonely, and incapable of accepting that my daughter had found happiness without me. He said I had built my identity entirely around being her mother, and now, when she didn't need me, I was trying to ruin her life. I stood up slowly and said, "Get out of my house." He smirked. Gladly. This place is depressing anyway. No wonder Emma couldn't wait to leave. Emma was crying, pleading, "Jake, please stop. Mom, please." I looked at her steadily. Emma, make a choice. Him or me. Right now. Her eyes widened, the tears streaming down her face. Slowly she walked to Jake, whispering, "I love you, Mom." But she added, "You've always been impossible. Nothing is ever good enough for you." The accusations hit me hard because they contained a grain of truth, but twisted into cruelty. Yes, I had worried she might settle, that she could aim higher, and that she deserved the best life possible. "I wanted you to have the best life," I said calmly. "No, you wanted me to live the life you think is best." "There's a difference," she said sharply. Jake draped his arm over her shoulders. "Come on, baby. Your mom's made her decision. We need to make ours." They walked toward the gate, and then Jake turned back, his smile sharp and poisonous. By the way, Margaret, the wedding's still happening. We found another way to pay. My family's more supportive than yours ever was. Emma and I are going to be very happy. And when we have children, they'll never know their grandmother was too selfish to be part of their lives. The words hung like a threat, pointing to a future I might never see. I watched them leave, Emma not once glancing back, my heart tightening as they drove away. I went inside, locked the doors, and stood in the kitchen, trembling. Fear crawled up my spine. What if I was wrong? What if pride had cost me my relationship with Emma? What if I never met my grandchildren? Then I remembered Jake's face when his mask slipped. The calculation, the cruelty, and I knew I wasn't wrong. Emma was making a terrible mistake, but she had to find her own way. All I could do was be here, ready to support her when she finally woke up. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled out my phone, and texted Patricia. Her response came immediately. Proud of you. You're stronger than you think. I stared at those words until my hands finally stopped shaking. After that, I stood up and went back to tending my roses, trying to focus on something simple and calm. The wedding was supposed to take place on Saturday, June 15th, at a luxury resort in the Bahamas, and I knew that because the invitation was still stuck to my refrigerator like a quiet reminder of everything that had gone wrong. The thick, elegant card felt more like a cruel joke than a celebration. I told myself I would spend that day keeping busy, working in the garden, visiting Patricia, doing anything that would stop me from picturing Emma in a white dress, Jake's ring on her finger, and the empty space where I should have been in the family photos. But on Friday afternoon my phone rang from an unknown number. A woman introduced herself as Caroline Winters and said she needed to talk to me about Jake Morrison. The moment she said his name, my heart started racing. She told me she had been engaged to him 3 years earlier and that seeing his name in another wedding announcement had made her feel sick. I sat down as she explained everything. Her story sounded painfully familiar. She had met Jake at a charity event in Boston. He had been charming and confident, and within 6 months they were engaged, planning a beautiful and expensive destination wedding in the Bahamas. Then just 2 weeks before the ceremony, her father suffered a serious health crisis, and suddenly the family's finances became uncertain because long-term care might be needed. That's when Jake changed. He became cold, critical, and distant, and only days before they were supposed to leave he ended the engagement, claiming she was too unstable for marriage. Later, she discovered he had already moved on to another woman from a wealthy family. Caroline told me she had found at least 2 more women with the same story, always the same pattern. He got close, rushed the engagement, and disappeared when the money didn't look guaranteed. She said she had been watching Emma's social media and noticed how fast everything was moving and how I had slowly vanished from their pictures, which told her he was trying to cut me out too. She said she had proof, emails, messages, records, and statements, and asked if I wanted to see it. When she sent it, I spent an hour reading through page after page of clear, undeniable evidence showing exactly what kind of man Jake was and how carefully he planned everything. When I called her back, she said she didn't want anyone else to go through what she had. The problem was, the wedding was the very next day in the Bahamas, and she was afraid to confront him alone because he would just twist the story and make her look unstable. As I listened, a bold and risky idea began to take shape in my mind, and before I could talk myself out of it, I said, "What if we go together?" I said nothing at first, letting the weight of what we were about to do settle between us. Then I asked Caroline quietly, "Are you ready to do this for my daughter?" She nodded. That night, we booked flights to Nassau, arriving red-eyed and exhausted early Saturday morning. It was reckless, expensive, and maybe even hopeless. Emma might ignore us, Jake might throw us out, but I had to try. At 8 a.m. we landed, rented a car, and drove to the resort. A pristine, breathtaking paradise that under any other circumstances would have been perfect. "How do we even get in?" Caroline whispered, staring at the front gates. "We walk in like guests. They won't know we're not on the list until it's too late." And it worked. The resort was enormous, multiple weddings happening at once. We slipped in with another group and found the beach pavilion. White chairs neatly lined, flowers arranged beautifully, guests arriving. I spotted some of Emma's college friends and near the front Jake's parents, exactly as I expected. Older, wealthy, polished. Then my heart clenched. There was Emma, in her sweet, radiant, young, and heartbreakingly out of place without me by her side. "When do we do this?" Caroline whispered. "During the ceremony, when they ask if anyone objects." Dramatic? Absolutely. Necessary? Also yes. We waited in the shadows as Emma walked down the aisle on the arm of her college mentor, the man she had asked to give her away because her father was gone and I wasn't there. It should have been me. Jake stood at the altar, confident and charming, playing the perfect part. The officiant began standard vows, promises, and then, if anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. I stood. Caroline stood. Emma's face went pale. Mom, she whispered. I took a deep breath. Emma, don't marry him, my voice carried across the pavilion. He's done this before. He's a con artist. Jake's confident facade flickered. Caroline stepped forward. I'm Caroline Winters. I was engaged to Jake 3 years ago. He left me when my family's money became unavailable, just like he will leave you, Emma. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jake's parents looked stunned. Emma froze. I took another step forward. We have proof, I said, showing the documents. Emails, financial records, testimonies from other women. He's been running this scam for years. Jake's mask cracked. You're crazy, he spat. Don't, I warned him. Emma's tears fell freely. This can't be true, Jake. Tell them it's not true. For a moment I saw him calculating, trying to find a way out with charm, lies, manipulation. And then finally he ran, bolted off the pavilion, across the beach, gone. Silence fell, heavy and deafening. Emma collapsed into a chair, sobbing, and I rushed to her, wrapping her in my arms, holding her tightly as relief and heartbreak tangled together. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. You were right about everything, Emma cried, her voice breaking. I know, baby. I know, I whispered, holding her close. Behind us, chaos erupted. Guests murmuring, Jake's parents demanding answers, resort staff confused. But none of it mattered. I had my daughter back. Jake didn't get far. Resort security caught him trying to check out an hour later. Caroline had already contacted the local police after recognizing a stolen credit card number he'd used for wedding expenses. Fraud was still a crime even in the Bahamas. He was detained and his parents, mortified, immediately flew back to London, apparently unaware of his past. The wedding dissolved, guests scattered, deposits refunded. Emma sat in her suite, still in her dress, staring blankly. Caroline and I stayed with her. I can't believe I almost married him, she whispered. I can't believe I chose him over you. Caroline spoke gently. He's very good at what he does. You're not stupid. You were manipulated by a professional. Emma turned to me, swollen-eyed. I said terrible things to you. You were under his influence. Can you forgive me? I pulled her close. Already done. We stayed in Nassau 3 more days talking through everything, her childhood, my divorce, our mistakes. We cried, laughed, and began to heal. Back home I went to see Robert Chin. I need to update my will, I told him. I want Emma reinstated as my beneficiary. Full inheritance. Her head snapped toward me. Mom, no. After everything, you're my daughter. Nothing changes that, she said, tears streaming. I don't deserve, she started. Love isn't about deserving, I said. It's about choosing. And I choose you always. But we weren't done with Jake. Caroline had been building a legal case for years, and now, with Emma's testimony, it was strong. The Boston district attorney took the case. Jake was extradited and faced charges in 3 states. Investigators uncovered 5 more victims, 7 women total, and over $200,000 stolen. 8 months later at the trial, Emma and Caroline testified, powerful, articulate, unshakable. Jake's defense tried to portray them as vindictive exes, but it failed. The jury convicted him on 14 counts of fraud. The judge sentenced him to 6 years in prison and full restitution. As he was led away, he looked at Emma one last time. She stared back, face neutral, saying nothing. She owed him nothing. Later, Emma and I went to dinner, shared wine, ordered steaks, dessert, and for the first time in months I felt a lightness in my chest. We were together, safe and finally free. I can't believe it's over, Emma said, her voice soft but relieved. How do you feel? I asked. Free, she replied, smiling genuinely for the first time in months. Like I can finally breathe. We raised our glasses. To fresh starts, Emma toasted. To truth, I added. To family, we clinked, and the wine tasted like victory. Later that week, Caroline called. Jake's parents want to help with restitution. They're also setting up a foundation to support victims of romantic fraud. Would you like to be involved? She asked. I hesitated then nodded. Yes. Turn this nightmare into something useful. That night I finalized my will one last time. Everything went to Emma, but I added a scholarship fund for single mothers pursuing nursing degrees. Women like me, women I wished someone had supported when I was younger. Robert approved the documents. This is a good legacy, Margaret. The right one, he said. It felt complete. The war was over. We'd won, not with anger but with truth, evidence and the law. Emma was free. I was free. We had survived, and more than that, we had prevailed. 2 years later, life was transformed. Emma had moved back to Connecticut, bought a condo 20 minutes away, and we had dinner together twice a week. She'd switched careers, now training to be a school counselor, helping teenage girls recognize manipulation. I wish I'd had someone like this when I was younger, she said. Our bond was stronger than ever, equal partners, mother and daughter, no dependence, only love. My scholarship fund awarded its first recipients, 5 ambitious single mothers pursuing nursing degrees. I felt purpose settle in my chest. I even started dating again. David, a retired teacher, became a steady companion. Museums, concerts, trips to Napa Valley. Emma approved. You smile more, Mom, she teased. Life became peaceful, happy. Meanwhile, Jake's life unraveled. Prison was harsh and his charm meant nothing there. Additional charges extended his sentence to 9 years. His parents disowned him. His reputation lay in ruins. No company would hire him. No woman would trust him. He even tried writing a memoir, but nobody published it. Justice at last had been served and our lives moved forward, stronger, freer, and full of hope. Every publisher rejected Jake's attempted memoir. Caroline uncovered a total of 12 victims, all caught in his schemes. But now he was the one ruined. Meanwhile, we were rebuilding our lives. Emma started dating Marcus, a gentle, kind, transparent man. She was truly herself around him. I'm happy, Mom, she said. Me too, baby, I replied. Finally, peace. Looking back, I learned an important lesson. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. Protecting someone from consequences doesn't help them grow. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stand firm even when it breaks your heart. Emma learned that charm isn't character, that isolation is a red flag, not romance. If someone toxic tries to pull your loved one away, don't back down. Stand firm. Speak the truth. What would you have done? Would you have given in or held the line? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Grandma Life. Standing up for ourselves isn't selfish, it's survival. Thank you for listening.